Hey guys, welcome back to Unlearn with Bianca. On this podcast, we talk about everything around healing, mindset, personal development, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. So today on the podcast, I'm sitting down talking to Nathan MacGregor. He is a men's health and movement coach. Welcome along, Nathan.
Thank you very much.
So Nathan has a lot of knowledge to share around movement, the importance of movement, biomechanics, rehabilitation. And why I really wanted to talk to Nathan is he even has an interest in epigenetics and holistic health, or just taking a holistic perspective, which is definitely up my alley. So I'm really excited to be having this chat. Tell us a bit about yourself. Like, what are you into? How did you get to where you are? What are you currently doing?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the fitness industry for 15 years, literally almost straight out of high school, but yeah, 15 years, have done all forms of your big box gyms, boutique studios, my own home studios, online training, mobile training, and work with many different people, females, males, athletes, sports teams, all that kind of thing. A lot of my interest in terms of movement and health and wellbeing comes from my own personal experiences. So knowing or understanding my body and how that functions, having a lot of like self-reflection on myself and why something feels the way it does or why I perform better doing that than this, for example. Yeah, just understanding my body and then knowing that then I can learn about that and then help other people understand their bodies. My general philosophy is like we only get this little one meat sack to move around in, so why not make the most of it and make it work properly?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to look after it, right?
Totally.
Where I kind of started was the brain and mindset, but as I've been preaching, we have to take a wider approach to looking after our health. And I think having appreciation and understanding how we best move our body can really shift things for everyone. I'm curious about how things have shifted over the years in terms of the way that you look at movement. Let's talk about movement in terms of nervous system and the importance of that.
Yeah, for sure. Right from the beginning, I've always had the perspective that everything in the body is interconnected, physically, but also you could say metaphysically as well. And so that the body affects the brain affects the body, everything and everything else.
Speaking my language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like when it comes to movement and, like the mental health or even the nervous system from a physical point of view, we know there's benefits to mental health in the nervous system. That just goes without saying. There's copious amounts of research. But like when you get into the specifics of it or when, someone wants to understand like why it's beneficial, you only have to look at the fact that exercise is a stress on the body, and exercise is actually a way that we help translate or transmute our definition of stress. And most people feel good when they exercise. Release of endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, all those type of things. But it's when we can step up to a physical challenge of a workout, get through that workout, that we reflect on it and we either consciously or unconsciously start to redefine our perception of challenge or our perception of stress. And the fact that if we can move through exercise and move through stress in that way, then it helps us reflect on other stresses in our life and how we can overcome and move through those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. In terms of talking about the nervous system, we often refer to this concept called the window of tolerance, and you're able to build your body's, enhance your body's capacity to handle stress. And with exercise and movement as well, you're right, in terms of a mental challenge and actually pushing yourself physically, but also that changes the way you respond to other challenges in your life too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And I'm assuming you've heard of allostatic load?
Yeah.
So allostatic load, obviously the cumulative stress on the body, but exercise is a way to again dissipate allostatic load that is accumulated over a period of time. Yeah.
So for those listening, this is my thing. I always try and how can I break down concepts that maybe aren't easy to understand? So allostatic load, to put it really simply, like Nathan said, is just stress on the body. And when I'm talking in terms of nervous system and getting back into a regulated state, essentially we're trying to reduce the allostatic load. So as we know, we feel good after movement because we are shifting energy, but also completing that stress cycle.
Yeah, for sure. Have you also heard of the Holmes-Ra stress scale?
I haven't heard of that one.
So that was, I think it was developed in the 70s, but it was a stress scale that basically allocated certain points or stress points to lifestyle events.
Mm-hmm.
And these lifestyle events, not major things. I mean, there's things like divorce and, moving country in there, but there's things like, a change in job or a changing living environment. Not everyday life factors, but those things that happen fairly frequently in life.
Mm-hmm.
That just add more stress onto the body. And so the Holmes-Ra stress scale basically gives an indication of how many of these events have you had within a given period of time. The more points you allocate, basically the more chance of chronic stress you are under. Now, if we look back over the last 4 years through the whole COVID period, everyone has accumulated a whole lot of these points from their lifestyle being thrown out of whack.
Yeah.
And one of the main things, again, that I advocated for clients through that time was movement, because movement is a way to translate the cumulative effect of that allostatic load or those points accumulating.
Definitely. And, even with my clients, unfortunately, some of them are those living with chronic illness that can't move their body like they used to. That puts pressure on other systems, such as the lymphatic system. Therefore, it's putting more stress on the body and you're kind of getting in this cycle. So if we can move, first, it's a blessing. And second of all, it does remove, like you said, it really helps remove some of that stress load. So actually, on the back of that question, I guess you're probably used to picking up intricacies in people's bodies, their posture, even saying that I'm like, my shoulders are back, and the way they hold their body, because that's what I also intuitively do with my clients is look at those things. I'm sure you've got more knowledge on it, but have you seen a difference in the way that people are holding their bodies, and what are some of the signs through the body that someone might be experiencing like high levels of stress?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I view my clients in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So when I watch someone move, I can, kind of going to be a weird way to describe it, but I can see where the energy is flowing through their body, and basically get an understanding through my biomechanical knowledge what's active, what's not, and why it's that way.
So interesting.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, trends that I've seen over the last couple of years have been things like people adapting more to like seated postures, because they are sitting more often, whether it be at home or getting back to the workplace, but definitely at home, being locked down and all that kind of thing. But at the same time, I think I've seen a lot of appreciation for people having connection with people close to them, so family members, and having appreciation for being able to move with an environment that they enjoy. So the home environment or just around the home environment, through our lockdowns when we're allowed to go out for our 15-minute walks or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
People having more of an appreciation for those type of movement and those type of exercises than your regimented, let's go to the gym at 6 a.m. 3 times a week.
Yeah, so kind of coming back to basics and because that's when it doesn't feel like exercise, when you're able to do it with other people. It's that whole, what I find really interesting, that Blue Zones, have you watched the Blue Zones? And how they get a lot of their movement in just through daily activities, climbing up hills and working and things like that, and they're not going to the gym as much, which is interesting. And so like on the biomechanics of stress, you probably have quite an insight as to what's going on in your body. But do you want to go into some science?
Yeah, I've got some great examples. Like one of the things that I always tell clients about when it comes to stress in the nervous system is getting them to be very self-reflective. So getting them to basically do a check-in with their body. How is your body feeling? Where are you feeling tension? Where are you feeling soreness? Because that will give an indication of where you are holding stress, where you're holding tension. The standard for a lot of like office workers is through the neck and shoulders.
Yeah.
Some people are, and this we steer more into the epigenetic side of things, is some people are more prone to holding stress in different places of the body. So, for example, for me, I'm more prone to holding it down the back, so back of the neck, back of the shoulders, down to the lower back and the hips. Some people are more prone to hold it in the front of the body, so front of the hips, the hip flexors, up through the abdomen, into the chest. So getting people to reflect on where they hold stress and where they hold tension is a big thing, because when they become consciously aware of that, then they start to become consciously aware of what movement patterns are they doing that are fueling that tension and fueling that stress.
I see. Yeah, I just say the same thing to my clients. Probably not with that much detail. That's the first step, isn't it? Really noticing where we hold. For example, I definitely, if I'm under stress, I will experience a sore shoulder and jaw. A lot of tension people do hold in the jaw and that area. So if people have that awareness, and then do you mean by identifying patterns as in like how they're walking, the way that they're doing the exercises and that kind of thing?
Yeah, very much so, yeah. Like literally how they are moving, how their biomechanics are moving in their everyday life. I'm glad you brought the jaw. That's perfect examples because I'm assuming you know where the vagus nerve comes out of the skull.
Yeah.
So if someone is holding jaw tension, and just to pre-frame this, there's a lot of connective tissue throughout the body, right? There's not just our muscles and our tendons. There's connective tissue called fascia, which runs through, around, and encompasses every basically surface of our body.
Yeah.
It's basically the sheath of our body. And so jaw being the perfect example is that if someone has tension through their jaw or even tension through their neck, basically what that can do is that can constrict or hold tension in the structures around that area. And with the vagus nerve coming out of the base of the skull, it can basically restrict or constrict the vagus nerve and then therefore restrict the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, again, I think healing and getting that body into the parasympathetic state, which is that rest and digest state that we want to be in most of the time, it really requires us looking at both what's going on emotionally and mentally, but also those patterns in the body, because so many of us, I feel, and just from my own experience, walk around thinking that that's just how it is until we actively practice relaxing, shifting, standing differently. And then you're like, wow, it's a whole new world out there.
Yeah, 100% is. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. Another really good example is in terms of connectivity in the body. So, as I said, there's like fascia, connective tissue running throughout the body. There's a big thick band of fascia that comes off the liver and goes down and connects into the right hip. So if someone is having either liver trouble, inflammation, that will then inflame that tissue, pull on that tissue, and potentially cause right hip pain.
Wow.
Vice versa, if someone has a right hip injury, that then could cause tension and pull on that connective tissue that then pulls on the liver, which then impacts liver function.
That's crazy. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but I love the science behind it. What I love about the approach you're taking is like you're seeing the system as a whole, and I think a lot of people naturally have like a fascination with one area, but actually understanding how everything works is so much more beneficial to your clients.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
So it impacts the way that we digest food, the way we, everything.
Yep, 100%.
Any other facts that you want to throw in that you find fascinating?
I think probably the main thing that I find fascinating is, sure, we can look at the generalization of what works for most people. Strength training and, resistance training is going to provide the most benefit in terms of like fat loss, for example, for the vast majority of people. But my fascination is when we get down into the intricacies of individual people and the fact that my workout is going to be completely different from another male's workout of the same age and the same build, based on a multitude of different factors. But a perfect example would be that I know my body responds most to endurance style training. So whether that be high repetitions in the gym doing exercises or running or playing football or whatever. Whereas I know good friends of mine who respond more to heavy weight training. So they're doing lower reps and they basically feel more grounded and they get more nervous system safety by having a heavy load on their back or on their body.
That's really interesting. So, like, how can we become more aware of what works best for us? Because you've actually gone into my next question, which was really around assumptions that we perhaps incorrectly make about the way we think we should move. There was the gym. Well, there is still the gym era. Like, I like the gym too. And now running, I feel for the girls, is kind of trending at the moment. And, like there's always going to be these trends. And it's very easy to think, I should be doing this because this is what they say to do. So how do we form that awareness to really see what suits us? Is it just based on how we feel afterwards? Is it while we're doing it?
I think a combination of all of the above.
Yeah.
So, first and foremost, if you're not working with a professional, or someone who's an expert in that field, then definitely, how are you feeling going into it? Are you dreading it? Because if you're dreading it, then it's probably not going to be motivating for you to continue it.
Completely. Yeah. That should be the first thing.
For sure, yeah. And don't get me wrong, like a lot of workouts that I do that are quite hard, I don't look forward to.
Distinction between hating every time versus that challenge, right?
100%, yeah, absolutely. And so, reflecting on how you're feeling going into it. And then I've heard you talk about before about the identity that we associate with what state are you in, and then what meaning or what identity have you then attached to that exercise. Like, I have to do this because if that is ingrained in you, then it's going to be hard to break. But at the same time, if that's ingrained in you, then you're going to find that if you're pushing but you've still got that identity attachment to it, you're going to find you're at, like butting heads, you're at a clash, because on one hand you don't like doing it, but on the other hand you feel for some reason you've taken on board that that's what you have to do.
Yes. So changing the identity and the relationship with the exercise before trying to just do something you don't want to do, which again, I've totally done that before. And that actually, I think, speaks to a bigger point around if you are working on yourself mentally, physically, it's about the energy behind it as well. And like, are you doing it to care for yourself, to work on yourself, to, I know cliche, but love yourself, or are you doing it out of a place of hate and punishment, essentially?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I've literally got a point here on my notes that talks about that if you are exercising from a point of punishment or a point of I'm running away from something, I don't want to have that happen to me, whether it be a disease or an injury or whatever, the identity of that is not going to sustain you long term. You want to have some form of intrinsic motivation to pull you forward and inspire you forward, rather than a negative or an external motivation to push you forward, basically.
Yes. So rather than a ski tactic, you want to have a driver.
Yep, 100%.
Internal driving force.
Yep.
Nice. Yes, I'm fully on board with all these conversations. Any other assumptions that we incorrectly make about the way we should exercise in terms of perhaps quality versus quantity, mindfulness doing exercise?
Yeah, for sure. Just to throw a wee stat in there. In a generalised population, if you took 100 people and you put them all through, let's say, a HIIT class or a HIIT program over X amount of weeks, the vast majority of those people are not going to respond to that program or are actually going to get worse as a result of that program.
Get worse in terms of like their...
In terms of like their cardiovascular fitness will not improve, it'll get worse. They potentially might be prone to injuries. It'll impact their chronic stress on their body and they just won't thrive in it. And I can't remember the exact ratios. Less than a quarter of those people would respond well and improve. Vast majority of them would stay stagnant or stay the same, not improve at all.
Yeah.
And then, again, the very small percentage at the other end would decrease or go backwards. And so this plays into the idea of, and HIIT training is a perfect example, because you see HIIT training or Tabata style or circuit style training everywhere. And from a commercial point of view, in terms of a gym, it's great because you get 20 people in a class, 20, 30 minutes, everyone's had a great workout, you smash them, they leave, you can do 2 classes in an hour, you're recouping your costs fairly effectively. But for the individual, when it comes down to the benefit for them, I can guarantee that vast majority of people are going to suffer more than they're going to benefit.
He said it. Controversial. No. Yeah, and why is that?
Yeah, so this comes down to this idea of epigenetics and what people's bodies are going to respond to most. Time of day also plays into this as well. So someone who could do a form of a HIIT class in the morning and then someone else could do it, similar HIIT class or same HIIT class in the evening, 2 completely different body types, but because they're doing it at different times of the day, they're going to respond differently and potentially they're going to both benefit. Whereas, say, if the nighttime person did it with the morning person, chronic stress. Vice versa the other way around. If the morning person did it with the nighttime person, chronic stress.
Interesting.
And this is not like a given rule of thumb for everybody, obviously.
Course. Yeah.
But it's just saying that everybody is an individual.
Yeah.
We can't silo everybody into one little bucket and say that this exercise is going to be beneficial for you all the time. We need to understand that people are different and that things like the timing of the day, chronobiology, which is the study of how our body interacts with time, and the the night-dark cycles.
Like circadian rhythm and that
all
kind
that type of thing.
Yeah.
So your early birds, your night owls, that's actually a real thing based in science. And people will respond better to exercise and stresses throughout the day based on who they are as individuals.
Yeah.
And that's just all about, that chronobiology is just all about how someone handles stress at one point of the day versus another point of the day. So you've got your, your night owls will handle stress a lot better in the afternoon and evening than in the morning. Vice versa for the early birds, like myself, I will always handle stress a lot better in the morning time than I will at night time.
So interesting. I definitely think we do need to accept more about people's differences. Not everyone's a morning routine kind of person.
Going back to your question, the original question, understanding how you're feeling going into it, but also understanding and reflecting on how you're feeling while doing it. But taking into other factors like, are you doing it with people you enjoy? Do you actually want to do it with people? I prefer working out alone. I'll go for a run, I'll go for a weights workout. The only thing I really do in terms of working out with other people is play football. So when you get to understand the little things like that, you can then start to play on those and be like, okay, well, actually, wouldn't mind doing a HIIT class because it's with other people, even though it sucks. I wouldn't mind doing that because I get this oxytocin, I get this serotonin of being around with other people, I get the connection, I get the love from other people. People are high-fiving and cheering me on.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas for someone else, they're like, hell no.
I want to be by myself.
Couldn't think of anything worse.
No, that's such a good point, because that is where group fitness really, I think, is amazing. And I think that point about the HIIT, if I quickly circle back, I think it can be really good exercise, like you said, but it also depends on what phase of life you're in and what is going on for you at that time. If you're doing a lot of high intensity exercise, what I've personally found through stressful periods or periods where you are maybe in a more heightened stress response, then that is going to put your body into an additional stress response. And if you're not taking time to come back down, which is the key, it's more about having those times to bring your nervous system back into a more balanced state. Yep. If we're not doing that, then it kind of maintains us living at that elevated level of stress, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it also depends on how you're able to counteract the stress you put your body under.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And also when moments like that happen and you are compounding stress on stress, being able to recognise, okay, how's that showing up in my body? Where is the tension coming from? How's my brain feeling? Am I feeling agitated? Am I feeling antsy? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling depressed? Am I feeling stressed? All that type of thing. Because when you can recognise all those symptoms that show up as a result of stress being put on stress, then you can recognise, okay, what have I done to create this? What's been going on? And also then how can I mitigate it? And yeah, like you just said, more often than not, it's not doing the complete opposite, but doing something that counteracts what you've just done.
Yeah.
So yeah, some yoga instead of a HIIT class, some breathing exercises instead of a run, that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a mental game too, because you've really got to allow yourself to do that type of exercise. Another question I have for you, you work predominantly with men, but like you said, you've worked with many types of people. Do you see a difference in the way that men and women respond to movement, or what works best for them? I know we have quite different hormonal cycles. It's just quite a fascinating area to me. So is there anything in that area, any wisdom you could share?
Yeah, for sure. The first point that I would say is obviously with the female's menstrual cycle, they are going to perform better, and I'm no expert on this by any means. There's far more experienced people than me, but females will perform better at certain parts of their menstrual cycle versus others. And depending on what type of exercise they do, will be reflective or should be reflective of where they are at in that menstrual cycle.
I definitely think that's a thing, and I think it's a whole other topic of conversation again of what we think we should be doing versus what might work best for us at that nervous system level.
Yep.
But like you said, everyone's different.
So another thing that factors into the whole male-female thing is like we consider things like masculine, feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And we consider that males, generally, masculine energy likes more structure.
Yeah.
And so most males will probably thrive with some kind of structure around their
Mm-hmm.
exercise, even if they are the type of people that like to socialise and like to go into a HIIT class and like to be varied. They still like to enjoy a little bit of structure within that environment. Whereas, in general, females might be a little less structured. They might like a little more flow
Mm-hmm.
and a little more fluidity.
We love a walk and a chit chat. I'll give you that.
100%. There we go. There we go. Yeah. So things like that.
Yeah.
And just again reflecting on why people want to do exercise a certain way and what's going to benefit them, what's going to feel good for you. I know from working with a lot of males over the years, males like challenge. Males grow mentally and emotionally through challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to what I was saying at the start in terms of, helping us translate or transmute an identity with stress. If a man can grow through challenge, through, exercise, then it helps him basically redefine how he perceives stress. And so when he comes up against other challenges in his life, then he can associate that same kind of identity and meaning to those challenges. Most men are like evidence-based, and we like proof of kind of concept.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, we'll cover it in a whole other podcast, but the masculine, feminine energy, and it is very much an energy, and we all have both energies. And like you said, everyone's very individualistic. But I think, speaking as a female, I was very much exercising from a place of structure for a very long time, and it was very uncomfortable for me to step into yoga. I was like, this is boring, I need to be doing something, I need to challenge myself. So I love a challenge too, but it took a lot of resistance actually to enjoy that, and that's when I think often we need it the most, when it feels a little bit uncomfortable to not just yoga, but to not put the pressure on to constantly be hitting a personal best and doing the next thing. So for any ladies out there listening who aren't into that form of exercise, give it a go. Fluid exercise and not having an outcome can actually just really help us ground as well. I personally have found, just my 2 cents. Anything else on that whole topic of differences?
Just what you were saying about the nervous system and those different types of exercises like yoga versus resistance training or strength training. The whole topic of epigenetics obviously layers over the top of that as well.
Yes.
Because we can have individuals, both male and female, who, as I mentioned before, they will get emotional and nervous system safety and a feeling of security in a group environment with other people. If you put them in an environment by themselves and tell them to go work out by themselves, they will feel stressed and they'll actually get depressive symptoms. Vice versa, some people thrive and, again, get nervous system and emotional safety when they are by themselves in their own structure doing their own routine. And having too much external stimulus from either other people or an environment that's too stimulating will cause nervous system disruption.
That's so interesting. I haven't actually considered that before in terms of exercise.
Yep.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and it's from my point of view, again, having looked a decent amount into epigenetics, it's fascinating how watching people respond to exercise in those kind of ways and recognising that, okay, this person here, although they're in a chaotic group fitness class and they don't look like they're doing much, they're actually having the time of their life.
Yeah.
And it's benefiting their overall health and well-being because they're getting this connection, this oxytocin, this serotonin with other people.
And good music,
Yeah.
vibes are good.
Exactly. Versus taking them out and putting them into an environment by themselves where they're potentially going to show depressive symptoms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So perhaps it's not sometimes that you don't like exercise, just doing it and try doing it in a different way.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, find what you like.
Yeah. And I know that you very much promote mental well-being as well and the mindset piece. We've talked a lot about the connection between your mental health and movement. You have this belief that transformation starts within, right?
Yep.
Do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. Just to throw another little fact in about the nervous system, mental health, body movement. There's a protein in the body called brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's been shown that the levels of this protein are higher post-exercise, and what this protein actually does in the brain is it goes into the brain cells, particularly in the hypothalamus and the prefrontal cortex, and it actually nourishes brain cell regeneration and brain cell health. And, for example, if you put this protein in some brain cells in a petri dish, you would actually see the brain cells being encouraged to grow new neurons. And so in terms of looking after brain health and mental well-being, when it comes to things like degenerative diseases that erode the brain, exercise is a massive, massive kind of not cure, but a massive part of preventing the decline of brain health.
I love how you add the science to it.
Yep.
It would definitely aid with neuroplasticity and the brain's ability to change.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Cool. So you focus more on, like I said, working with men, and I am assuming a lot of people come to you and they come for the physical aspect of movement and getting support with that. But I'm essentially guessing you're doing a lot of coaching, just like I am, because when people are in a safe space, they tend to open up, they tend to feel comfortable, you get to know people, you get to know threads and themes of what's going on for people and why they are exercising. Is there anything in particular that you have noticed in terms of mindset that comes through with your work?
Yeah. Movement and exercise is definitely, this is the way that I generally sell it as well, but also people come to me. Movement is the kind of the caveat, the gateway. That allows people to obviously work with me, but open up to other areas of their lifestyle. And so someone might come to me for a movement issue or an injury or, wanting to lose body fat or whatever it might be. But what they're actually coming to me for is something deeper, something beyond movement. Movement is just the superficial connection point that we have. And it soon becomes about, I'm not feeling safe in my job, or, my family life has gone to shit, or, my nervous system is just through the roof. I can't handle what's going on. That's obviously extreme, but movement just becomes the facilitation of a deeper conversation.
Yeah.
And so what we can do, or what I can do through movement and working with particularly males, as you say, is getting them to understand how their body functions. And so, like I said before, men grow and generally process emotion through movement. Most men would agree that when they get frustrated, angry, anxious, they feel physically, like they start jittering, they want to get physical, they want to expend energy. And so for a male to be able to move and process that energy and process that emotion, far more beneficial than just suppressing it and just getting on with something else. And so when it comes to transformation and getting men to understand who they are as men, where they sit within their life, where their kind of personal leadership is at, movement is a perfect gateway to help them understand that, because it gives them perspective on how hard am I willing to challenge myself in these stressful situations. How hard am I willing to push towards, I know I said push is negative before, but push towards a goal or, through a challenge. How long am I willing to stick towards a plan, towards a goal, towards an outcome in the future, all those type of things. And so when you get an individual focused on those, it just helps them, again, redefine their identity and just start to question who they believe they are and basically who they believe they have been. But the inspirational thing for me is who they believe they think they could be.
Yeah.
Like,
nice.
who can they grow into?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're obviously passionate about men's health. Do you think there's anything that needs to shift, or any area in particular that you are passionate about?
In general, self-reflection and self-awareness for men is massive. And I think that needs to be promoted more, and more men need to embrace that. More men need to talk about that, particularly with other men. One thing that I always advocate for is men need other men to grow and to heal. Regardless of what trauma you've gone through or how significant, men need men to talk about these kind of things. Again, we're going to get into a little bit of the masculine feminine here, but I guess you could say a traditionalist in terms of a man, sure, confide in your partner, but don't dump all of your emotional stuff onto her, expecting her to fix it and expecting her to kind of carry you through that. That is something that you can structurally unpack with your male friends or a therapist, for example. So yeah, men needing men to heal and being aware of yourself and how you relate to yourself, how you talk to yourself externally but also internally.
Yep.
When you're in circumstances where, for example, say someone's complaining about something, how do you talk to that person? How do you talk to yourself about that? Do you agree with the complaining? Do you dive into that? Or do you step back and you say, actually, no, I don't agree with that, and stick to your boundary and your, I guess, identity of who you are based on that circumstance?
Yeah, so many things to think about in terms of mental health. We could dive into a lot, I'm sure. Any specific client transformations that really have stood out to you?
Yep, yeah, for sure. So quite a few from the getting people to understand their own body's point of view. And this is, again, where epigenetics plays a factor. So I've had a few people who have come to me with health issues, with weight issues. One lady in particular, she came to me and she had bowel obstruction issues. So she would regularly go 10 days, 14 days without a bowel movement. Eating normally, drinking lots of water, but just wasn't going to the toilet appropriately. And so one of the things that we unpacked with her is that how much her mental state affected her digestion, which then affected her bowel movements. And so a couple of simple things that we did was, we started getting her drinking warm fluids throughout the day, which helped calm her nervous system down. We started getting her to, at night time, turning off lights in the house that were bright and having more subdued lighting, having, candles or, more orange, mellow kind of lights. Yeah. Again, which down-regulated her nervous system. And we also started getting her to journal and basically get everything out of her head onto paper. Yeah. And with a couple of those changes, what that did is basically it shifted her digestive system and then her bowel movements. And as a result of that, she basically had regular bowel movements from then on out.
So you didn't even have to get her to move, really?
No, not really, no.
Nice.
And that just kind of goes to show the correlation and the causation between likes of the nervous system and the digestive system and how basically they fuel each other.
I mean, metaphorically, if you look at the bowel, what are you holding on to?
Yep.
It's, you've got to look at it in different ways, right? But that's really fascinating. The more we share those sorts of stories, the more people start to understand how powerful this connection is.
Exactly. There's a couple just around weight loss as well, where we've literally just changed the timing of things throughout the day. So going back to what I was saying before, your early birds, your night owls, generalisations, but when people do things at certain times of the day, it will influence how they handle stress. So if someone is exercising at night and they can handle stress either at night versus in the morning, that's going to have an impact on their body. So just changing the timing of exercise, of eating, of when people get up in the morning, when they go to bed at night, will influence weight gain and weight loss. And so one person I had, we literally made him go to bed later. And because he worked for himself, start work later in the morning. So he was going to bed at 11, 12 at night, getting up at kind of 8, 8:30. And sure, we were doing exercise and we were doing nutrition as well, but that was the biggest change that we did to his routine. And he dropped 10 kgs in 10 weeks.
Wow.
And that was just purely due to...
on his cycle.
Down-regulating his stress on the body and just getting in tune with what his nervous system could handle.
So movement's really like the cherry on top. Yeah. When we do it right. 100%. When we perfect those things.
Got it.
Fascinating. So as we end, I'm just curious, one tip or tool that you think everybody should focus on and master. It may be to do with movement. It may just be something to think about in terms of the nervous system or mindset.
Yep. One. Okay. Okay, I'll go with the one that...
One or two.
No, I'll go with the one that I know you'll agree with as well. Breath. And this comes back to self-reflection as well and self-awareness in terms of if you can understand and be aware of how you're breathing, you'll get more of an indication of how your nervous system is behaving and then how your mind is behaving as well. So if we're taking the short breath into the chest, we're probably stressed, we're probably anxious versus deep breaths into the diaphragm. Another fact I can throw in here is when we breathe at a rate of around 6 cycles per minute, so basically an in-breath, out-breath every 10 seconds, so 6 per minute, and we continuously do that over a period of time, the frequency of the heart resonance is basically around 0.1 hertz. And basically what that means is that then has a bigger impact on heart variability or heart rate variability, which is the space between beats is basically what heart rate variability is all about. Now, in terms of that, you want more variability in your heart rate if you have a consistent heartbeat where the space between beats is relatively the same. That's causing problems. And because that's just, again, reflected on the nervous system, there's a whole lot of science behind it, but ideally you want more variability in the space between heartbeats. Using breath as an anchor to regulate your nervous system, regulate your heartbeats, has been shown to offer that variability.
So just slowing down our breath, being aware of breathing into our belly, simply starting there.
Yeah. And looking at different ways to breathe. You know, there's the there's old Wim Hof, but that targets the sympathetic nervous system. But then you've got the potato method, alternate nostril breathing, box breathing, all those type of things. And there's a whole lot of science behind all of them. And you'll find one that resonates with you most. Yeah. And for a lot of people, like for example, I know alternate nostril breathing is really good for ectomorphs or people who are more nervous system dominant versus box breathing, who is better for more your typical endomorphs or your more heavy set person.
Yeah, interesting. If anyone listening is from Christchurch and they want a class or workshop to go to, I did a very good breathing dynamics of breathing course with my friend James Bishop. He was at Restore, and it was amazing. It taught me so much about being mindful of breath, so I highly recommend that if it's still running. Just a little shout out there.
Yeah, for sure.
We have covered so much today, and I really appreciate this conversation. It's been so interesting. And I mean, I love the science, but I feel like you just took it to another level. So I appreciate you bringing all these facts to the table.
You're welcome.
If anyone wants to work with you or you have any current offerings, do you want to share more about your current services?
Yeah, sure. So if anyone wants to work with me or reach out even just for a chat, just to pick my brain, Nathan MacGregor on Facebook and Instagram. I think both of them are public profiles, so you can pretty much find me. It's my smiling face in the profile picture. Or Nathan at titaniumfitness.co.nz. In terms of offerings, I always offer like a free kind of discovery session with people just to chat about what's going on for them and basically to see if we're a good fit. My core offerings are either 6 or 12-month packages, and that basically ensures that we can work on someone's well-being for a length of time. And even if they don't work with me after that, just means that they've got some amazing tools to go away with, and they can cultivate their own plan going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Nathan, and thank you guys for listening. I look forward to catching you on the next episode.